I think the issue here is the fundamentals, and we saw in the second quarter, have been improving quite steadily. Sentiment was improving as it relates to that. And in the last really 3 weeks, we've had, if you will, self-inflicted wounds on the part of a CEO that we think is going through a founder's dilemma. And he's clearly stretched too thin and is having a lot of issues from a PR, and the optics around his PR are obviously big negatives for the stock. And to invite effectively an SEC inquiry here that's going to be an overhang for at least the near term, we think it's the right time to sort of get onto the sidelines and let that part of it play out, and perhaps even make a bigger call to the board, to management, to find someone to work with Elon as either a co-CEO or a COO to take some of the pressures maybe off of him and allow him to be what he's, I think, best at and a generational, brilliant leader as a visionary.
Jamie, there's two issues here. There's one, which is the take private and whether that is even a possibility, whether that's realistic, given the math, frankly, of how that could or could not work. And then there's the sort of, I would argue, larger issue, which is just the going concern question and how much that going concern is worth, whether they can make the numbers work and whether they can pay. There's a lot of debt coming due and whether they'll be able to make those payments. And so, I guess my question is, are you focusing on the take private issue or are you focusing on the actual just going concern issue?
No, I think, first of all, I like how you framed that. I think that's exactly right. I don't think the take private probability is very high anymore, particularly, now we're hearing rumors of the Saudi investment fund focusing on Lucid, right? And so I think there's a very low probability this goes private. We ascribe sort of a 5% chance out of a $420 opportunity set as it relates to our new target price range. As it relates to the go-forward fundamentals, I do believe, and I would encourage anyone who hasn't, to visit the factory in Fremont, visit the factory, in Reno, the Gigafactory. They have revolutionized the auto manufacturing process. We think this stands on its own from a margin perspective, from a profitability, and from a cash flow perspective on an ongoing basis. The distraction and the sideshow of which has been Elon in the last few weeks, unfortunately, is part and parcel to why the SEC, we think, is now inquiring around the funding secured and so forth. And so that's where we're uncomfortable.
Which means what? What's the solution you want to see to correct that?
Well, we think he is, if you will, maybe stretched too thin and could use a professional COO or a professional co-CEO to come on and to sort of alleviate some of the stresses on him from a communication strategy perspective.
Colin, what do you think the chances are that, let's say, in the next 6 to 8 weeks, because that's, I think from a timing perspective, there's not much more than that, that you will see the company announce that kind of person, a COO or a president or a CEO. And I would imagine, most importantly, whenever that, if an announcement like that were to even come, the most important thing you want to hear is that Elon trusts that person and almost admires that person, because if it's somebody who's put in next to him that he doesn't want to be there, it's not going to work.
I think it's really hard to tell. This board's really proven to be extremely passive and really let him run the show. And so it would be a real change of behavior for them to actually step in and do this. I think it's really going to have to come from Elon saying, I need some help, and admit that. And if he can grow up enough to recognize where his limits are, I think it would be tremendous for the stock and actually very good for the company.
What do you think the stock's actually worth?
We've got a $385 price target on it. We upgraded after the last quarter, given the guidance around the gross margins. We think there's actually a lot of cash generation potential here. I'd agree with James on that. On some level, I'm not convinced that they've completely revolutionized the automotive industry, but I do think that they're going to make money on a $55,000 to $60,000 car with the Model 3. And as we go forward, there's a lot of risk around the strategy of the company and how much money they're spending and how they're going to generate a return on that. But from our perspective, they've kind of turned the corner on the basic cash generation and have an opportunity to really grow this company, and they need to get the right team in place to do that.
Colin, in terms of the steps they may or may not take, if they were to say that he was taking a leave of absence, even a 2 or 3 week vacation, would that be considered a positive for the stock or a negative?
I don't think it would go either way. I don't think that's a big enough move. I think they need another presence that can actually counterbalance Elon's capabilities in terms of visualizing a new reality for an industry, with someone that can really mine the pennies and nickels and the details of an operation in a way that he can't.